Okay. Okay, we're starting to record. So today we'll be learning Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis. We're going to finish Perek Mishay Tzil of Eruvin, which is the fourth Perek of Eruvin. So we had an argument in the Mishnah between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda said that someone who lives in place A, let's say London, and he wants to go to a different city in order to, which is outside the Tchum, and in order to do that he has to make an Eruv. So we said that even if he left his house and he didn't reach his destination where he wanted to make the Eruv, as long as he left his house, and then he was called to return, then it's counted as an Eruv. Rabbi is going to argue with that. Rabbi is going to say that it's not counted as an Eruv, and he's going to be stuck. So let's see, Nun Beis Amud Beis, a few lines down. Nun Beis Amud Beis, about 3 lines down. So we said in the Mishnah, Rabbi said, anyone who's able to make an Eruv, and he never made the Eruv. For example, our case, that he was on his way out, and then his friend called him back, and he never actually reached his destination to make an Eruv. So Rabbi said that Rabbi gives the example that he's like a person who's riding, who in front of him has a donkey and behind him has a camel, meaning that when he's riding, so he has to keep an eye on the donkey, and he also has to keep an eye on the camel. So he's stuck between a donkey and a camel. So that's the mashal. That's the mashal he gives. The nimshal is, in our case, that a person, let's say a person has a house in London, right? So he has 2,000 amos to walk from London, 2,000 amos out of London. Let's say he has another house in Manchester. So if he makes an Eruv to go to Manchester, so he's going to have 2,000 amos from Manchester. Not only he's able to walk to Manchester, and now he's going to have 2,000 amos from Manchester also because he made the Eruv there. So Meir says this person who had an intention to leave London and go to Manchester, for example, so he's stuck because from one hand we say that he actually says if he went to Manchester, and since it's as if he went to Manchester, his Eruv is now in Manchester, so he can't walk from London 2,000 amos because he says if he's staying Shabbos in Manchester. And from the other hand, since he returned to his house, he never actually made it to Manchester. We say that it's as if he's in London. And since he's in London, he's not able to walk 2,000 amos to Manchester. He only has 2,000 amos from London. So he's basically stuck, and he has to stay between Manchester and London. He doesn't have 2,000 amos from Manchester. He doesn't have 2,000 amos from London. Because as if he's stuck in the middle, he has the same. We look at it as if he's in Manchester on one hand, and as if he's in London on the other hand. So he's stuck in the middle. So the Gemara is going to say now like this. We already brought down this ruling once that a mayor said that someone who makes an Eruv, for example, in this case, that it's a suffix whether his Eruv is in Manchester or it's a suffix whether his Eruv is in London. So we already said that a mayor that's as if he's riding a camel, he's riding a donkey, the mashal we gave before. So if so, why does the Mishnah have to repeat itself again? The Mishnah we learned yesterday, why does the Mishnah have to repeat itself? If we already have a Mishnah that tells us this, it must be that the reason why the Mishnah repeated itself is to teach us a chiddush. And the chiddush is like this. Amar Rav Sheshes, so Rav Sheshes answered and said the reason why the mayor repeated himself is because don't say the reason why the mayor says that he's stuck is because suffix Eruv, suffix lo Eruv. Because we say because maybe it's a suffix whether his Eruv was in Manchester, or it's a suffix whether his Eruv was in London. Don't say that's the reason that who the Havacham Gamadafk in that case, because it's a suffix. But if we know that he for sure never made the Eruv, if his Eruv didn't work to be in Manchester, so maybe now he would at least have 2,000 amos from each direction in London. But yeah, so don't say that. That's what the Brisa teaches us. The reason why the Meir repeated himself is to tell us even in our Mishnah, which the case of Mishnah is he for sure never made the Eruv. How do we know he for sure never made the Eruv in Manchester? Because his friend called him back. And since his friend called him back, the Meir argues with you and says that as if you never made it to the place you want to make it Eruv, it doesn't count. In our case, he for sure never made the Eruv. And even the Chiddush of the Meir, even though he never made the Eruv, he's still as if it's still as if he is he's stuck between London and Manchester. What's the svara of Meir? What's your Meir's reasoning? Yeah, Meir says that in our case, he for sure never made the Eruv. For example, if a person was in London and he wanted to be shavis, he wanted to make an Eruv in Manchester. So according to the Meir, if he never made it to Manchester, his Eruv in Manchester doesn't count. So why are you telling me that in some aspects it does count? So the answer is, and the first explains, because the Meir holds that since on Erev Shabbos I had intention to leave London, It's as if I left London, even though I never left the Pale. And since as if I left, I uprooted my staying from London, and therefore I do not have 2,000 hours. It's as if I'm in Manchester, even though I never made the Eruv, even though I never made a proper Eruv, but I still had some sort of disconnection from staying in London. Therefore, I do not have 2,000 amas from London anymore. Okay, so that's the end of that piece. The end of that piece explaining the Mishnah. That the Mishnah, the Chiddush of the Mishnah over the Brisa, the Chiddush is that the Brisa is teaching us that if the Safik where he made his Eruv, so it counts from both places. The Mishnah teaches us that even if he for sure never made Eruv in that place, for example, our Mishnah, it still counts enough for him to be stuck between London and Manchester, meaning he doesn't have 2,000 amos from Manchester because we say that he's in London. He doesn't have 2,000 amos from London. Because we say he's in Manchester, and therefore he's stuck between. He's only able to walk in between these two places. Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Beis, the Mishnah in the middle of the page. The Mishnah says like this: Misha yatsa chutz latchum. Someone who went outside the tchum. Now the Mishnah is going to speak about cases that a person went outside the tchum. Okay, we have 2,000 amos. What if I walk 2,001 amos? So I walk 1 amma outside the tchum. So it says the Mishnah, Misha yatsa chutz latchum. Someone who stepped outside the tchum, someone who went outside the tchum. Afilo amma achas, even 1 amma, lo yikonis, he cannot go back into his tchum, and therefore he has to stay there for the rest of Shabbos. He cannot walk back into his tchum because since he walked out to the tchum, he's stuck there and he can't walk anymore. So if he was able to walk back into his tchum, so then he'll have 2,000 ammas, he'll be able to go all the way back. But the din is that since he walked outside his tchum, even 1 amma, he has to stay there for the rest of Shabbos. That is the opinion of the Tanna Kama. Belezer argues and says, if you walk 2 amas, so then you can't. Then he's able to walk back in. Shalish, if you walk 3 amas, no, you can't. He's not able to walk back in. So the Gemara doesn't explain clearly what Belezer holds, but we'll just explain briefly. We know that a person has 4 amas, 4 by 4 amas to walk to walk outside the tchum, meaning his tchum only starts 4 amas. His tchum only starts 4 amas. After his own 4 amas. So Rebbe actually says that the 4 amas isn't 4 amas 4 by 4 amas. It's not 4 amas in each direction. A person has 4 amas, meaning 2 amas to the side, 2 amas to the right side, 2 amas to the left side, 2 amas in front of him, and 2 amas behind him. So it's basically 2 by 2 amas. He's able to walk 2 amas in front of him and 2 amas behind him. That's what the 4 by 4 amas. So Rebbe is saying that if you walk 2 amas, if you only walk 2 amas, so then you never went outside your 4 amas. And since you never went outside your 4 amas, you're able to walk back. But if you walk 3 amas, so now you walk 3, so you, according to Belezer, you went outside your own 4 amas. And therefore, you are stuck and you cannot walk by. Let's see the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Chanina said, if you have 1 leg inside the tchum, and you have 1 leg outside the tchum, so a person is stepping right now outside the tchum, his 1 leg is inside, 1 leg is outside, he cannot go back inside the tchum. The Chsivka says in Pasuk, it's a very interesting Pasuk we're going to see. It says in Pasuk like this, Im tashiv mishabos raglecha. It says that a person should rest from walking. A person should rest from walking. In our context, it means from going outside the tchum. So the Pasuk uses the lashon raglecha. Raglecha means your legs. Okay, so this Pasuk is very interesting because it has a kri and a chsiv. We know a lot of psukim have a way they're written, and then they have a different way they are read. So the way this pasuk is written, is the raglecha lashon yachid reish gimel lamed chaf, which is with the shva under the lamed, which is raglecha, which is lashon yachid, which means 1 leg. But the way we read it is raglecha, which is your legs, as in lashon rab. What's an afternoon if you read it raglecha or you read it if you read it lashon yachid or lashon rab? The difference is if it means 2 legs or 1 leg. So Rabbi Chanina said, since in the pasuk it says, "Im tashim mishab d'chsiv," it says in pasuk, "Im tashim mishab raglecha." Since it says in the pasuk, the way the pasuk is written is raglecha, so it's even 1 leg. So we know from the pasuk that even if a person has 1 leg outside the tchum, it's still counted as if he went outside the tchum, and therefore he has to stay there and he's not able to go back in. So now the Gemara is going to ask him this, that we have a brisa that says, Punkt fakir, they have a brisa that contradicts this. But Tanya, we learned in the brisa, ragle achas b'seichat tchum, if you have 1 leg inside the tchum, ragle achas chus tchum, if you have the other leg outside the tchum, you can go back in. So this is a clear contradiction. So Rabbi Chanina just told us right now that if someone has one leg inside the tchum and outside the tchum, he's stuck. He has to stay there. What's the answer? I was going to answer Hamani that this brisa that we just learned is achenim. He goes is achenim. Achenim usually goes in the meir, the Tanya, because we have the brisa says achenim emnim lemakim sherubai hu nizik. A person goes after where most of his body is. And since in our case he didn't take out most of his body because he still has one leg inside the tchum, so therefore we look at it as if it's inside the tchum, and therefore he's able to go back. So that's all one way of learning this whole statement of Rabbi Chanina. There's another whole different aspect of learning it, another whole different way of learning it, and we're going to see that it says complete opposite. Let's see. Some people read the Mishnah like some people say like this. Rabbi Chanina is a complete opposite of what we just learned before. If you have one leg inside the tchum, you have the other leg outside the tchum, you can't. He should go back inside. Complete opposite of what we said before, that Rabbi Chanina said you should not go back inside. How do we know that you're allowed to go back inside even if you have one leg ready outside the tchum? Because it says in the pasuk, it says in the pasuk that you should rest from your feet, rest from walking. So what does it say? Even though it's written raglecha, meaning one leg, but the way we read it is raglecha, which is both legs. It seems to read it raglecha. So since this person never took out both legs, so he's fine and he's able to walk out. He's able to walk back into the tchum, even though he already had one leg in. So now the Gemara is going to say about Tanya, but we have a brayso that says lo yikanis. We have a brayso that says he shouldn't go back in. So the Gemara answers, who the amar kachenim. This brayso goes like achenim. Rabbi Chanina, holds like achenim, which achenim say the Tanya the makam sheruba yehu niskar, that a person goes after where most of his body is. And since in this case he only took out one leg, so most of his leg is still inside the tchum. So therefore he's able to walk inside. He's able to stay. He's able to walk back into the tchum. So basically, what we did was the first way of learning was that Rabbi Chanina said that it's also to walk. It's also if you have one leg outside, it's also to walk back in. And we brought a brayso to contradict that. And the second way of learning is that Rabbi Chanina said that it's mutter to walk in, and we brought a brayso to contradict that. And the answer is the same, that either Rabbi Chanina holds like a chedim, or in the first way of learning the Gemara was that the brayso is a chedim. It's also interesting, that they're based on both ways of learning what the pasuk of Ragracha mean. Do we go after the kri? Do we go after the way you read it, or do we go after the way it's written? The way it's written is the way it's written is one leg, and therefore Raglacha is one leg, and therefore it's mashma that it's also even if you take one leg out. But the way you read it is Raglacha, which is both legs. So the question is, do we go after the way you read it, or do we go after the way you write? Okay, now the Gemara is going to go further and explain what the Rabbi said in the Mishnah, that if a person walks 2 amos outside the tchum, he's able to walk back in. But if he walks 3 amos, he shouldn't walk back in. Rabbi says, if he walks 2 amos outside the tchum, he's able to walk back in. Shalish, but if he walks 3 amos outside the tchum, he's not able to walk back in. The Gemara asks, Tanya, it says in the brayso that Rabbi says, Achas, if you walk 1 am outside, you're able to walk back in. Shtaim lo yikanes. But if you walk 2 amos outside, you're not able to go back in, which is a clear contradiction to what we just learned in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, it says that if you walk 2 amos outside the tchum, you're able to walk back in. 3 amos, you shouldn't walk back in. And the brayso says that 1 amma, you're able to walk back in. But 2 amos, you shouldn't. You can't walk back in. So how do you stick together the brayso with the Mishnah? A clear contradiction. The Gemara answers like kasha. It's not a question. How the akal chada become tarti? When the Mishnah said that a person who walks 2 amos outside the tchum, what it meant was that he went 1 amma and he's standing in the 2nd amma, meaning he's making his way forth to the 2nd amma. So that's what the Mishnah means, that Shtaim, that he walks 2 amos, is able to walk back in. How the okat tarti become atlas, but the brayso that says that by 2 amos you cannot walk back in, it's speaking about he's not standing on the 2nd amma, he's walking towards the 3rd amma, and he has a step already towards the 3rd amma, and therefore by 3 amos he's not able to walk back in. So it comes out that the Mishnah and the brayso are speaking about where a person is holding. The Mishnah is speaking about that a person is standing on the 2nd amma. He walked 1 amma, then he walked another one, and he stopped. Shaking the brayso is speaking about he already made his step into the 3rd amma, which the 3rd amma, according to all opinions, all the ways you learn Rabbi, you cannot walk back into the tchum after the 3rd amma, because that's already going out of your daled by daled, your 4x4 ammas space around. Now the Gemara is going to go back and bring another brayso that contradicts what we learned in the Mishnah. But Tanya, we learned the brayso. The Blazer says, "I feel amo achas leikanes." Even if you walk one arm outside, you're not able to go back in. And over here, you can't tell me that he's standing on the second arm, because over here we're saying that even if you walk one arm, he's not able to come back in, which is a clear contradiction to the Mishnah. And when I answered that case that Rabbi was talking about, that one, if you walk one arm out to the Tchum, you're not able to walk back in, was speaking about a completely different case. It wasn't speaking about to the din of someone who walks outside the Tchum. It was speaking about of someone who's measuring the Tchum. Let's see. That which Rabbi said, that if you walk one arm outside the Tchum, you're not able to come back in. It's speaking about Lameide. It's speaking about a person who's measuring the Tchum. Let's see. It says in the Brisa, Ulameide, meaning someone who's walking. And he's measuring 2,000 ames. Shamnu neistin le'apayim am. Afilu seif midase kala b'ma'ara. Says that someone who's measuring 2,000 ames, meaning if someone is walking from one city to the other, and he's counting 2,000 ames. So we said that we give him 2,000 ames. Afilu seif midase kala b'ma'ara. Even if his 2,000 ames stops in a cave or stops in the middle of nowhere, he's still not able to walk further. That's what Rabbi was talking about. That if a person is measuring 2,000 amas, he should not walk outside the Tchum, meaning he doesn't have any extra space to move. He has to stop right then and there. So therefore, it's not a contradiction to the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is speaking about a case that a person by mistake walked outside the Tchum. So the question is whether he can walk back. The Blazer said you cannot walk out, you cannot move even after Amma. It's speaking of a case that a person was measuring himself, and that's what it's talking about. If you measure 2,000 amas, you have to stop right after the 2,000 amas stop. You cannot go further. So now we're going to finish the Perek of Perek Misheitziu. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah is going to speak about someone who it became dark. Friday afternoon, he was walking, taking a hike, and then suddenly it became dark, and now he has to start worrying about the 2,000 amas. So let's see. So the rule is that when someone, it's an interesting rule. If you have, let's say, a person is walking outside of a city, or let's say London, a person is walking 1,000 amas. Let's say a person 1,000 amas from London, meaning inside this Tchum, there is another city. So the din is that he has 2,000 amas from the next city. So we don't say that the 1,000 amas stop, and then he can walk the whole next city. Let's say Manchester, whatever his city is. He can walk the whole city, and then he can go further from Manchester. So we don't say that you don't count Tchum inside a city. You only count Tchum outside the city. So if a person is walking a certain distance and he falls, he's inside his Tchum, he ends up running into a city. So he has free space walking in the whole city. Now, what if a person, his Tchum finishes just before the city? So let's see in the Mishnah. Misha Hechshich Chusta Tchum, someone who was outside the Tchum and it became dark. So the din is he has to start counting 2,000 amas. Even if he's 1 amma away from the city, meaning even if his measurement finishes 1 amma away from the city, and therefore if he'll step into the city, he'll step 1 amma, he'll be able to spend Shabbos, he'll be able to walk freely around the whole city. The din is he should not walk in there. He cannot walk because his Tchum finished. That's one opinion. The opinion of Tanakam. Shimon says, even if a person is 15 amas away from the city, I mean, even if a person was counting 2,000 steps and he stops 15 amas away from the city, he's able to walk those 15 amas and walk into the next city. Why? His Tchum stopped. So why is this person able to walk further? Because it says, the people who measure the Tchum, let's say from London, they have a big sign of 2,000 amas outside of London. They'll have a big sign saying that this is the Tchum Shams. So we're saying that people who measure the Tchum aren't exact on their measurements. We're going to see in a second soon why. And since these people aren't exact on their measurements, so therefore if you walk 2,000 amas and you have a big sign saying this is 2,000 amas outside of London and 15 amas away from you is another city, so the din is, according to the Bishim, you're able to walk those 15 amas and spend Shabbos in the next city. Why? Because when they hung up the sign saying that outside of London was 2,000 amas, it didn't actually mean that there were exactly 2,000 amas. They left space. They left the extra extra room for people who are going to make a mistake that they in other words, they put up the sign earlier than it was supposed to. And therefore, a person always has a gap of 15 amas to walk further. That's the Gemara Tana. What does it mean that who the people, it says in the Mishnah that he has extra amas because the people who make a mistake. Which mistake? Tana, what does it mean? Mipnei, it says in the Brayso, Hamida. The reason why you have the extra 15 amas is because the people who make the road signs of the 2,000 amas make a mistake, meaning they make the simon is a mistake. The sign that they put up is a mistake. Why is it a mistake? It's a mistake because they especially put up the sign early, so people should have or they aren't exact on the measurement 2,000 amas. They put up the sign early, so people should have extra room to walk. This is all according to one pirush. We're not going to enter now, but Rashi has a very interesting pirush that the people who make a mistake of the signs, it actually means that they are actually mistaken. The mistake is made. It's actually a mistake. Why is it a mistake? Because the way you measure the tchum is that you have a long string, and you have a long string of 50 amas, and then another person holds one side of the string, and then another person will hold the other side, and then you have another string of 15 amas. So Rashi makes the whole thing and saying that the way they hold the string, so they don't hold it right on the string. The way they hold the string, it takes up a tefach. So between each string, you're basically having a tefach and a half of holding both strings, and therefore, since you're having both strings together, since between each string you have a tefach, if you add all the tefachim up, then it's going to be 15 amas. If you add all the tefachim 50 times whatever it is to make 2,000, is going to be, if you add all these extra spaces, it's going to be extra 15 amas, and therefore you have extra 15 amas. That's all one pirush. The other pirush is, like we said before, that they especially make it earlier, so people should have time. People, in case someone makes a mistake, so I'll have an extra space of 15 amas. It doesn't have to worry so much about walking to the next city. Hadnalach Misha Yitzil. We finished the Perek of Misha Yitzil. Okay. So we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to continue on Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, starting the new Perek of Ketzad Ma'arvin. How do you make an Eruv in a city?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If this person's traveling, why can't he just make his shvita wherever he is outside the city and then walk into the city?
He could, but if he didn't do that, an Erev Shabbos, then doesn't count.